Good morning. Welcome back to the channel. I've been in China for the last month and a half or so, which means I had no motorcycle to ride. But now I'm back in Oklahoma City, and I'm back with my Moto Guzzi V7, and I'm anxious to have a little ride on it. So it's a beautiful morning here in Oklahoma City. It's already about 31 degrees centigrade. It's going up to about 40 today in Fahrenheit. That's triple digits. But we have a nice breeze and blue sky with a few puffy clouds. And for a destination, I'm going to ride out to a small private airport called Sundance Air Park. Never been there before, want to go and take a look. And I will talk about the surprising connection between pilots and motorcycle riders. So, come along with me. As I mentioned, today it's going to be pretty hot, about 40 degrees centigrade. I think that's about 105 Fahrenheit. And so it's already pretty warm this morning, and it's only 8 o'clock in the morning. So what I'm wearing today in terms of gear is I am wearing the Bowtex AAA-rated leggings under my jeans. And I'm also wearing the Bowtex shirt, which is also AAA rated, armor in the elbows, shoulders, chest, and back. And that will keep me safe without making me too hot, because all I have under the Bowtex shirt is just a t-shirt. And I have the Bowtex leggings under regular Levi jeans. So I'm fine. I'm heading out to the airport on Oklahoma State Highway 3, which in Oklahoma City is known as Northwest Expressway. But once you get past the city limits, it's just Highway 3. The speed limit on this road is 55 miles per hour, but it's a curious little road, at least in this section of it, because every few blocks there's a traffic light. And so you have to come to a full stop, even though technically it's a highway. It has traffic lights until we get outside the boundaries of Oklahoma City. But this road leads directly to the access road for Sundance Air Park. So, of course, this is the road I ride. Back to that surprising connection between pilots and motorcycle riders. Back in 2013, backcountrypilot.org conducted a, admittedly, unscientific survey and found that 85% of pilots ride motorcycles. Wow, that's quite a large percentage. And I'm included in that 85%. I have my private pilot license, and of course I ride. What's the reason for that big connection? Well, I think it's because both flying airplanes and riding motorcycles require mastery of a machine. Driving a car is nowhere near the same. Automatic transmission cars are just point and go. Manual transmission cars do require a bit more, coordination of the clutch, the gear, the gas, but otherwise it's pretty simple because of the stability of the four wheels. But riding a motorcycle requires control of the throttle and clutch, plus balance of front and back brakes, balance of the bike, as well as steering, counter-steering, and leaning. Flying an airplane requires control of throttle, foot pedals for the rudder, control wheel or stick for the ailerons and elevator, and constant scanning of the instruments for altitude, attitude, and navigation, as well as use of the radio for communication with air traffic control. So both flying and riding require full focus and concentration. And on both machines, one control input results in multiple machine outputs. In an airplane, when you push the throttle forward, the nose pitches up and the plane accelerates, and it wants to turn to the left because of the torque of the engine and propeller. So you have to counter that by rolling slightly to the right. If you bank steeply left or steeply right, you must apply the correct rudder to keep the plane turning smoothly, and you must raise the nose to maintain altitude. When you pull back on the throttle and slow the engine down, the plane of course will want to drop, but you can't let it drop too much, so you have to maintain the attitude. Otherwise you will be diving too steeply, or if you pull up too much, you will be stalling the airplane, so it's pretty complex. On a bike, if you accelerate quickly, the front wheel will lift. If you brake suddenly, the rear wheel can lift. If you brake in a turn, the bike will stand up and stop the turning arc. If you don't want to overcook that turn, you have to coordinate braking before the turn, closing the throttle, maintaining your line through the turn, and then accelerating out of it. The complexities of controlling both bikes and planes is, I think, what attracts pilots to motorcycles, and vice versa. It's good to be back on the Moto Guzzi V7. Good to be back on two wheels. And it's a beautiful morning for riding. The V7 is purring along nicely. The engine on this motorcycle is really a peach. I'm in fourth gear, doing 55, 57 miles per hour, and I'm only at 4,100 RPM. That's one of the nice things about this motorcycle. It's not a huge engine, 850cc, it's only about 65 horsepower, but even at highway speeds of 70 miles per hour, in sixth gear, I'm still only doing about 4,000, 4,100 RPM. We've come to the intersection of Piedmont Road. Piedmont is a suburb of Oklahoma City, although technically still within the city boundaries, but it's its own little city suburb. And it's full of houses, fairly spread out, acreages. Actually, my brother lives in Piedmont. He has a 40-acre farm. He is not a farmer, he is a lawyer, but he likes to live in the country. And so he, long ago, bought a house out in Piedmont. And he also is a pilot and flies out of Sundance Air Park. I have not flown with him, but I'm going to the air park to check out his local airport. More new homes here. Oklahoma City just keeps expanding to the west and to the north. New housing developments just everywhere popping up. And here, this is one called Northwood Village, new homes starting in the $280,000 range. That's a pretty good price. They look like nice houses. Crossing here, the Chisholm Trail, which back in the 1800s and early 1900s was a cattle trail, driving cattle from Texas to the railhead in Kansas. Hundreds of miles that they drove those cattle, and we just crossed where they went. And now we're outside the city limits, and the speed increased to 65 miles per hour. No more traffic lights. But I have to be careful that I don't miss the road to the Sundance Air Park. And actually, I think I did miss it already. Now I'm going to have to make a U-turn and go back. I guess that's the advantage of having a GPS on your motorcycle. I don't put my phone on the handlebars because I don't want it to shake itself to death. And I don't have any kind of GPS device for the motorcycle. Usually I know where I'm going. And I thought I knew where I was going this morning, but I just drove right past the road to the Sundance Air Park. So back I go. Well, I got myself onto the correct road now, and we'll be pulling up to the airport in just a minute. Here we go, found the proper entrance. And here we are at the Sundance Air Park. It is quite windy out here at the airport, but we're going to see what we can see. I think the gate is probably going to keep me away from the actual runway, but we can get a look at some of the things. And here's the entrance. Welcome to Sundance. Sundance not affiliated in any way with the Sundance Film Festival, just coincidence. And inside there would be the little pilot's lounge area and offices. We'll go inside. Here we have the Sundance Flight Academy, and they've got a pretty fancy simulator there. A planning area where you can plan your flights in comfort. Coffee, vending machines, gotta have that for an airport. And out the back, the window shows us the runway. And as it turns out, the gate is open, so we can walk out and take a look at some of the airplanes. On the runway right now, we've got a Cessna, I think that's a 172, maybe it's a 182, that has just landed and is taxiing in. And over there we've got a big twin engine, I think that's a King Air. And over here we've got 4 airplanes parked. We'll get a little closer and take a little look. Also have the fuel pumps here for fueling up before your flight. Here we have a Mooney M20. Older, needs a paint job, but must be in flyable condition because that's required. No matter how old an airplane, the FAA requires annual inspections, and if it's used by a flight school, every 100 hours it has to be inspected and maintained so that it is always in an airworthy condition, no matter what it cosmetically looks like. The Mooney is a pretty fast single-engine airplane. The gear is retractable, and it will cruise about 180 miles an hour, I think. I am actually checked out in a Mooney. I have flown Mooneys. I've got, I don't know, maybe 20 hours in a Mooney, not very many, but I could fly them back when I was flying. I haven't actually flown an airplane since, I think, about 30 years ago. But I'm thinking about changing that and maybe getting back into it. I don't know if that's a good idea at the ripe old age of 73, but we'll see. At this age, I figure, hey, I got some time left for living. I'm gonna live it. And I've been thinking a lot about airplanes recently and just got the itch. We'll see what happens. Over here, we've got parked up 2 corporate jets. I'm not familiar with the model of either of these. They look to be the same. Those, of course, would be quite expensive. This particular corporate jet is not in an airworthy condition. You can see that the engine has been removed, and the same on the other side. Both engines removed. I don't know if that's because this plane is no longer going to be flying or if the engines are simply being overhauled or replaced, but that's not flyable at the current time. But the one right next to it is. And so I believe this is the same airplane. There you can see the 2 engines where they should be mounted. A nice little corporate jet. And finally, parked up over here in the parking area, we have a Cessna 172, I think. Again, I have flown Cessna 172s, not very often. When I was flying, I owned an airplane. It was a Piper Comanche, and that's what I flew most of the time. But I do have some time in Cessnas. I'm not a big fan of high-wing airplanes. I mean, you got great visibility of the ground, but you can't see above you very well. I much prefer a low-wing airplane, which is why I flew the Piper, because you got a great view of the ground and, to my mind, a great view all around. One more plane before we go. It's a Glass Air. That's a kit airplane. One of the fastest private two-or maybe that's a 4-seater airplane that you can get. Does about 275 miles an hour. It's really fast, a really slick aerodynamic shape. And I've never seen a Glass Air in the flesh before, but that's a beautiful one. And if you're interested, I think it's for sale, because I was just talking to Bob, the owner of that Glass Air, and I said, "How long have you had it?" He said, "Only about 4 or 5 months." I said, "That's not very long." And he said, "Well, I buy and sell airplanes, so I get them and I sell them." So if you're interested, find Bob at the Sundance airport and ask him about that Glass Air that's for sale. Well, we've had a nice little visit to the Sundance Air Park and seen some planes, and now it's time to get back home before it gets too hot. So back on to the bike now.